Last time, we talked about why some people lose themselves when life gets good. The overgivers, the overfunctioners, the ones who carry everything on their backs. But here's another side to this story that almost nobody really talks about. We're going to talk about the people who don't overfunction, the ones who crumble instead, or lash out, or shut down the moment life asks something of them. The ones who had it easy growing up, who never really had to manage their emotions or solve their own problems or sit in discomfort. And now, as adults, the slightest inconvenience sends them into meltdown or anger or helplessness. Now, you might recognize yourself in this, or you might be loving or working with someone or just dealing with someone exactly like this, whether it's a partner, a friend, a sibling, a colleague, and you feel constantly drained by their fragility, their reactions, or their refusal to grow. So in this video, I want to show you the truth that this isn't just their personality, it is actually a pattern and it's learned and it can change. And the interesting thing is a lot of the psychological and developmental research we have now backs this up. The way you were raised and the amount of challenge or protection you had has a measurable impact on how resilient or fragile you are as an adult. Now we're going to go deep into why some people become emotionally fragile and almost entitled when life gets hard. How overcomfort and overprotection actually damages resilience just as much as trauma, just in a different way. How this shows up if it's maybe you, how it shows up if it's someone you know, and then I'll give you concrete tools both for building your own resilience and for protecting your energy if you're around someone like this without making it worse or losing yourself in the process. And I'd love for you to stay with me until the end, because if you recognize these patterns in yourself, this isn't about shame or blame or any of that. This is actually about becoming the kind of person who can handle life or love or success without collapsing or attacking or needing everyone else to carry you. Hi, I'm Marina Papa, founder of the AP Method, and if you're ready to do life, love, and success in a way that actually gets you results, then you're in the right place. And if you don't know who I am and you're wondering, why should I even listen to this person? That's a fair question. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about me. I'm actually someone who was incredibly lost and who hit burnout so hard, it broke every area of my life. My relationships, my career, my health, my confidence, my sense of self, all of it. And no matter how much I achieved or how hard I pushed, I somehow kept ending up in the same unhelpful, painful patterns until I finally realized something. The real issue wasn't out there, it was actually within me. And honestly, facing that truth wasn't easy. In fact, I would go as far as to say it was the most uncomfortable thing I've ever done, but also incredibly freeing. And once I did that, everything started to shift. I rebuilt my life from the inside out, layer by layer, and over time, I started to become completely unrecognizable to myself in the best possible way. I'm also a formal dental hygienist and therapist, and I now work for a global dental and medical company, and I help others create these same transformations in their own lives. So if you want to build a life you don't need to escape from, and if you want success that doesn't cost you your well-being, then this channel is for you. Also, before we dive into this video, if you want to go deeper into why, or should I say who you actually are, what you stand for, and what you will and won't tolerate anymore, I've created a free core values workbook for you. It's really powerful and is the best starting point for any kind of inner work. The link is in the description. You can grab it anytime. And don't forget to subscribe if you find any of my content useful. So let's talk about this other dysregulation pattern. A lot of the time, I will tend to talk about people who had difficult childhoods, too much responsibility too young, or emotional chaos, or having to manage other people's moods, so on and so forth. And then, as adults, they will tend to overfunction. They carry everyone, they rescue, they fix. But there is another group, and this group were overprotected or overindulged or never really challenged. Maybe every problem was solved for these individuals, or they never had to sit in discomfort. Or if they were ever upset, everyone scrambled to make it stop. And if they failed, someone blamed the teacher, the coach, the world. If they didn't want to go and do something, they were let off the hook. Now, I know that on paper, that sounds like a dream childhood, But in reality, research is showing us something very different. For example, a 2022 systematic review of 38 studies on so-called helicopter parenting found that over-involved, over-controlling parenting is consistently linked with higher anxiety, poorer coping skills, and more entitlement in adult children, especially when they reach university or early working life. And studies on overparenting and snowplough parenting, where parents clear every obstacle out of the child's way, show that these kids often grow into adults who struggle with anxiety, low resilience, entitlement, and poor coping when things don't go their way. Now, several papers and commentaries point out that constantly smoothing the path can leave children less able to cope with setbacks, more reliant on others, and more likely to expect special treatment because they never had to experience natural consequences or solve problems themselves. They never got what psychologists call desirable difficulties, those manageable challenges that build frustration tolerance and problem-solving muscles. Desirable difficulties is actually a term coined by cognitive psychologist Robert Bjork, whose research at UCLA showed that when learning and tasks involve the right level of difficulty, people build stronger, more flexible skills and memory, not weaker ones. They learned that if something is hard, someone else will fix it. If I'm upset, everyone around me must change. If I don't like something, I can lash out, shut down, or just refuse and walk away, and others will bend. Now, this over time creates what we could call emotional fragility in disguise. So when real life shows up with deadlines, feedback, conflict, responsibility, or any sort of chaos, they wouldn't have the internal structure to cope. And this sort of individual would respond in one of two main ways. Learned helplessness, where you think that you can't, it's too much, someone else has to help or do it for me. And number two is entitled aggression. How dare you expect this of me? This is unfair. Everyone else is the problem. Now, psychology actually has language for this, and we can explain it. Martin Seligman's work on learned helplessness shows what happens when the brain learns it has no control. It actually stops even trying, even when control later becomes possible. And in his classic animal experiment in the late 1960s, dogs exposed to inescapable shock later failed to escape even when escape was possible and easy, instead lying down and taking the shock. And this basic pattern has since been replicated across species and linked to human passivity and avoidance when people feel they have no control. And Robert Ellis's work on low frustration tolerance, a core ideal in rational emotive behavioral therapy, REBT. This describes people who feel they can't stand any discomfort, inconvenience, or delay, and who become emotionally disturbed or aggressive when life isn't easy or when it's not fast or it's fast or too comfortable. In REBT literature, low frustration tolerance is literally defined as the belief that I can't bear this, and it's shown to drive avoidance, procrastination, anger, and emotional outbursts in the face of everyday stressors. Now, I want to bring this down from theory to real life so you can actually see how it might show up. Now let's start with how this might show up if this was you. Now be really honest with yourself again, because as you listen, just remember this isn't about shaming or blaming anyone or anything. It's simply about awareness. If you are someone that can relate to this video, or if you know someone that relates to this video, then it's about developing awareness first, because awareness is the beginning of growth. So here are some signs that you might have this overcomforted, under resilient pattern. You get disproportionately irritated by small inconveniences. The wrong email, traffic, someone being late, plans changing, and it ruins your whole mood. You feel personally attacked when someone gives you constructive feedback. You often think, this is too much, I can't cope, even with everyday responsibilities. You find it hard to finish things that are boring or tedious or not immediately rewarding. When something goes wrong, your first instinct is to blame others, whether it's your boss, your partner, your friends, the system. You secretly expect people to organize things for you, whether it's planning, remembering, initiating, or handling details. And when a situation feels emotionally uncomfortable, you either lash out or go passive-aggressive, or you just disappear. Or you feel offended when people don't rescue you or drop everything for you. You might even feel like, why is life always so hard for me? When objectively, your stressors are pretty standard adult life. Now, if any of that stings a little bit, please stay with me because that sting in itself is your growth edge. What about if this isn't you, but you're around someone like this? What it can look like looks a bit like this. They have angry outbursts over minor things. Maybe a restaurant booking being wrong, maybe a small mistake, a change of plans. They make everything about someone else's fault. There is always a villain of the week. They never seem to take real responsibility. They maybe say they will, but their behavior doesn't change. They expect you to buffer life for them, to organize, remind, soothe, fix, carry the logistical and emotional load. And when you gently challenge them or set a boundary, they play the victim or become cold, sulky, or attacking. You might feel like you're walking on eggshells because the smallest thing can set them off. And when life asks them to step up, more commitment, more effort, more accountability, they suddenly become helpless or overwhelmed or explosive. Now, let's talk about what's really going on underneath. Often these people never developed frustration tolerance, or maybe you didn't develop it. The brain was never trained to stay online when things are uncomfortable. And research on over-involved parenting styles shows that when adults grow up with parents who always intervene, they report less autonomy, more distress, and more feelings of entitlement or specialness, which all map onto this "I can't cope unless you fix it for me" pattern. And on a nervous system level, that looks like this. Their system quickly flips into fight, anger, blame, control, or fold or fawn, which is helplessness, I can't do this, and they collapse. When really, basically reality doesn't match their preference. So there isn't yet a strong ventral vagal capacity. That's the grounded, regulated state where you can feel discomfort and still stay present, think clearly, and choose your response. Now, polyvagal informed work like Stephen Porges' polyvagal theory has really highlighted how our autonomic nervous system needs a sense of safety and a window of tolerance to stay regulated under stress. And people who never built that through kind of healthy challenge can tip into this fight or flight or shut down much faster. Now, here's the part a lot of people miss. Just like trauma doesn't mean you're broken, being overprotected or overindulged doesn't make you spoiled for life. But it does mean you have some emotional growing up to do. And if you love someone like this, it means you need to stop accidentally blocking the growth by rescuing or overfunctioning or cushioning every consequence. Now, let's get into some practical tools here. I want to give you 3, and I'm going to split them into what to do if this is you and what to do if this is someone in your own life. Now, tool number 1, I want you to name the pattern without shaming yourself. If you recognize that you've had it relatively easy in some ways, and now adult life feels like too much, it's very tempting to just go into "I'm just weak," or "I'm just broken," or "I'm a bad person." Now that's not useful, and it's actually not true. Your brain simply wasn't trained for stress and responsibility. That's it. You didn't get the reps. So your first job is to own the pattern without making it your identity. You might literally say to yourself, okay, I'm realizing I never really built my resilience muscles. I get overwhelmed or reactive when things are hard. Now, this doesn't make me a bad person. It means I'm under-practiced, and I'm going to start practicing now. From there, you can start to catch moments in real time. For example, you notice you're about to send an angry text or something because your friend maybe canceled on you. You notice you're mentally blaming your boss for something reasonable. Or you notice you're about to say, I can't, when actually you're scared that you'll fail. Or someone tells you you've hurt their feelings and your instant reaction is to defend yourself or explain or deflect, instead of really listening to what that person is saying. Or maybe someone says no to you or doesn't do something you really wanted or needed them to do, and your instant reaction is to get angry at them instead of looking at how you can take responsibility for your own needs and your own sort of requirements. Now, at this point, I want you to pause and ask yourself, is this something I have to do, or is this just unfamiliar or uncomfortable or inconvenient? 9 times out of 10, it's the second one. That question alone and that reflection starts to break low frustration tolerance because it replaces I can't cope with this is uncomfortable and I can cope and I get to have a choice in moments like this. This is literally the kind of cognitive reframing used in REBT, which is rational emotive behavioral therapy, to weaken low frustration tolerance and rebuild emotional resilience. Now, if this is someone else in your life, naming the pattern for yourself is also crucial. Instead of they're evil or they're a monster or they're cruel to me, try they never learned how to tolerate discomfort. And right now they are emotionally underdeveloped. That explains their behavior, but it doesn't excuse it, and it doesn't mean I have to accept it. That keeps you grounded instead of pulled into their storm. Now, before we go into tool number 2, if this is landing so far, if it's giving you something really useful, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and also drop a comment. Tell me whether you recognize yourself in this, or maybe you recognize someone else's behavior under this. It really helps this work get to more people who also need it. And I love reading your comments as well. Tool number 2, stress inoculation on purpose. Now, resilience doesn't magically appear. It's built the same way you build a muscle. Repetition, load, recovery. Now, there's actually a concept in psychology called stress inoculation. The idea that facing manageable challenges and learning you can handle them builds your capacity to cope. Now, this comes from the work of psychologist Donald Meichenbaum, I think I said that right, who developed stress inoculation training in the 1970s as a structured way to expose people to small, manageable stressors so they could build skills and confidence before facing bigger ones. Now, if you've ever been overcomforted, you need to start almost like deliberately doing hard things in small strategic doses. So if this is you, here are some examples. If your default is to avoid difficult conversations, choose one small, honest conversation and plan it. Don't text your way out of it. If you're kind of used to quitting as soon as something is boring, set a timer for 20 minutes and stick with the task until it goes off. If you're always late and make excuses, choose one day to be 10 minutes early for everything, just to prove to yourself that you can. If you typically dump everything on others when you're stressed or overwhelmed, practice saying, I'm feeling overwhelmed, but I'm going to take this first step on my own and then ask for support if I still need it. Now, the key is don't overdo it. You're not trying to throw yourself into emotional CrossFit on day 1. You're just giving your system more than it's used to, really. And you're teaching it, we survived, we handled that, we didn't die. And over time, your internal story shifts from I can't cope to I can handle more than I thought. And this is exactly how both stress inoculation work and desirable difficulties research suggests we actually build real capacity, gradually increasing the level of challenge, not staying at 0. Now, if this is someone in your life, do not rob them of these reps. That means when they complain that something is too hard, but you know it's a normal adult task, you can empathize without making it about you or taking over. You might say, I get that this feels a lot right now. I believe you can handle it. What's the first step you can take? If they lash out when stressed, don't placate and fix everything around them to keep the peace. You can respond with, I'm willing to talk about what's going on, but not whilst I'm being shouted at or being attacked. When you're ready to speak respectfully, I'm here. If they always expect you to organize or plan or book or chase, start gently handling some of that back. Here are the details. You can book what works for you and let me know. When you constantly preempt consequences for them, you're intentionally doing what over-involved parents did, clearing the path and stopping them from ever learning how to walk it. Now, a lot of clinicians now warn that this kind of overfunctioning by parents or partners feeds exactly the entitlement and helplessness that show up later. The research on snowplough and helicopter parenting makes that very, very clear. Now, tool number 3, regulate first, then respond for both sides. Now, just remember, underneath all of this is a nervous system that panics when reality doesn't match the script. So if this is you, one of the most powerful things you can do is build a habit of regulating your body before acting on your feelings. That could look like when you feel that surge of anger or helplessness, you pause for 90 seconds. That's about how long a strong emotional wave lasts if you don't fuel it with more thoughts. Neuroscientist Jill Bolt Taylor famously described this as the 90-second rule, roughly the time it takes for the chemical surge of an emotional reaction to move through your bloodstream before thoughts kind of start recreating it. So you could remove yourself from the situation for a moment and just go and do something that calms you down. You could step away for a short walk. You could take a hot shower or a bath. You literally can go and put your body somewhere that helps your nervous system settle before you come back and respond or make a decision. Another exercise is you can plant your feet on the floor, feel the chair under you, and take 5 slow breaths, exhaling for longer than you inhale. That longer exhale kind of tells your nervous system that we are safe enough to slow down. And you might even say to yourself quietly, I can handle this moment. I don't need to react from my first impulse. Now, this takes practice, but only then do you reply to the email, have the conversation, or make the decision. Now, if you've always reacted instantly, snapping, shutting down, storming out, this alone will change your life. And if this is someone in your life, your job is to regulate yourself, not them. You might notice their voice rising, their body tensing, their words getting sharper. Instead of matching their energy or shrinking to appease them, you ground yourself physically. You kind of feel your feet, your breath, your spine. And again, if you need to, you remove yourself and go and do something grounding for yourself. Take that walk, take a shower, whatever you need to do to ground yourself. And then, there can be a conversation or you can deal with the issue at hand. And a really helpful tip is hold your boundary. So something like, I'm not willing to be spoken to like this, or we can continue this conversation where we're both calmer. You're not their therapist, you're not their nervous system or their parent or their punching bag. Your calm is yours. Their reaction is theirs. And from there, you can decide, is this someone who occasionally falls into this pattern, but is able to reflect and take responsibility and repair? Or is this someone who lives here, who refuses to grow and consistently makes you the emotional punching bag or parent? If it's the first category, then these tools will help the relationship massively because you're both developing. If it's the second, however, your work may be to step back, set firmer boundaries, or even step away completely. And this applies to every area of life. Now, loving someone or dealing with someone or working with someone does not mean agreeing to be their permanent stabilizer whilst they refuse to stand on their own 2 feet. And I want to speak directly to you now if you recognize this in yourself. This is not about labeling you anything, okay? This is about saying, no one taught me how to handle certain situations, and now I get to teach myself. Because you are capable of emotional adulthood. You're capable of doing hard things, of hearing feedback, sitting in discomfort without kind of falling apart. And you're capable of building a life where you don't need to be carried in that way. But it starts with very simple, very unglamorous moves. Finishing tasks you don't feel like finishing, owning your mistakes without deflecting, practicing calm when you want to explode, allowing people to say no to you without punishing them, choosing growth over comfort again and again. And if you're the one on the other side, the overfunctioner who always ends up being the strong one around people like this, your growth edge is a little different. You want to start stopping cushioning every fall. You want to stop explaining the same thing 50 times. Stop parenting adults. Start backing yourself and your own boundaries, because your job is not to make sense of someone else's emotional volatility. Your job is to stay emotionally honest for yourself, self-respecting, and aligned with your own values, whether they choose to grow or not. And if this video has helped you see yourself or someone else more clearly, and you want more content like this, please do like, subscribe, share this video, and don't forget, you can also request to work one-on-one with me. All of the links are in the description. And thank you so much for watching. Thank you for listening once again, and I can't wait to see you in the next one. Bye for now.